Welcome back to my backyard. Here we are at Orangeville District Secondary School with with Mr. Van Rees and the Angling Club.
One time I was fishing and I had a huge fish on, and I lost it and I thought the line broke. But when I reeled it in, I found out that my knot had come undone.
You were probably using the wrong knot. You're probably going something like this, and then maybe you tried to secure it with a double knot, but that just doesn't work because the fish will just be too heavy for it and it'll just come undone, or you'll break your hook.
What kind of knot should we use instead of that knot?
All right, well, here's one for you. This one's called the polymer knot. So basically you take your hook and your line and you reel it through, bring it through, and then wrap it back in like this. And then you do a basic knot that you would do to tie your shoelace or something like that. Pull that all the way through, and then with your hoop that you've made, you wrap that down through the hook, and then you pull it all through and gets into a nice knot in there. Yeah.
Breaking the hook.
So this one's mainly used for leaders and snap swivels.
Cool.
Yeah, polymer knot. There you go.
Hey Chase, here's another knot. This is called the clinch knot, which I think is probably another great knot to have. So you just take your line and push it through the eye. And what you're going to do is you're going to wrap it around. And depending on the pound test that you're using, you can wrap it 4 or 5 times or perhaps 7. So the thinner the line, the more you want to wrap it around. Yeah. So I'm going to do it 5 times here. And then you take your tag end and you push it through the first loop. And then what you're going to do is you're going to slide it down. Usually what I do is I put some saliva on here, decrease friction, all right? Because sometimes the heat will damage the line a little bit. And as you slide that down, you have what we call the clinch knot.
These are swivel clips. This one would be better to use than this one because this locks in place with the extra wire that's coming out of the side, and this one has no extra wire, so it doesn't lock, and the fish could pull right through it.
These are bobbers. There's different sizes you can get. This is a big one, so that means it'll float more. With a smaller one, it won't float as much, depending on what you have on the end of your line. So if you have a jig head with a worm on it, a smaller one like this would probably keep it up, but not as much as one of these big ones because it has lots of air in it, so it'll keep it floating. And Mr. Van Rees, when you get a new rod or reel, how do you string it?
Well, Chase, let me show you the third knot. So we've learned about the polymer knot, we've learned about the clinch knot, and I think this is probably the third knot everyone should learn to use. This is called the arbor knot. And the spool, which is also called the arbor, you loop your line around the spool, and then you go underneath it, and then you're just going to tie an overhand knot over your line. And when you tie the overhand knot over the line, just snug it up a little bit, and then you do another overhand knot just past where you did your original overhand knot. And I'll show you why that one's important. And then all you have to do is you pull, and that pulls it nice and tight. And the reason why you have this knot here, and I should have done it a little bit closer, is that if it pulls through, that will catch. That's going to attach your line to your spool. That's called the arbor knot.
Cool.
So how often do you have to change your rod?
Well, you know, Wes, that depends on how much fishing you do and where you leave your fishing rod and your reel. Sunlight and extreme temperatures tend to weaken the monofilament line. So you might get by with every 2 years, perhaps. It just depends on how much use you're giving it and where you're storing your fishing line.
Now we're going to show you how to re-spool your fishing rod.
So I'm feeding it through the holes of the rod, one by one. They're also known as eyes. The eyes get bigger as you go further down the rod.
Okay, so Wes has passed me the fishing line. You'll notice that my bail ring's open. That's always important when you're respooling your fishing reel. We're going to do the arbor knot. That's the knot we've just learned. And we'll cut it as close as we can to where that knot is. There we go. Flip the bail over, and Chase is going to hang on to the spool. Now you want a bit of tension, and what we're going to do is I'm just going to slowly start to turn the crank, and Chase is hanging on to the spool, and we're just going to take line off until it's full. Now, one of the biggest mistakes people make is they put way too much line on their spool. And Wes, when you do that, what happens is sometimes when you cast, all this line comes flying off your spool. So the spools do have numbers on them which tell you, for example, if you have 6-pound test, how many meters of line to put on. It's probably a good idea to try not to go over the amount that they suggest. Otherwise, you'll be cutting off a lot of line when you're trying to cast. So Chase, once we have enough line on our spool, what we're going to do is cut the line and use our polymer knot to attach a snap swivel, and then we'll put the snap swivel onto the eye support, and then we're ready to go.
When we come back from the break, we'll be learning how to cast our rods and some tips on how to cast.